Welcome to Jesus Changes Everything, a daily podcast dedicated to providing a fresh look at the ancient and glorious truth that Jesus not only reigns, but is busy about the business of bringing all things under subjection, that celebrates the wonder and the glory that he has been given all authority in heaven and on earth. It's time once again for another one of our sacred marriage segments, which is always a joy and a delight to me because I get to welcome my precious wife. Welcome, sweetheart.
Always glad to be here.
Well, I'm always glad to have you here. And we are finally getting into the fruit of the fruit after much delay. We're talking today about love as it relates to sacred marriage. But before we do that, I want to acknowledge that this principle that I hope would apply in all that we cover here in this segment, and that's this, that doing better as a husband or doing better as a wife is usually not necessarily something unique to that role, but rather is something that just is an outworking of what we are as a person. That is, I become a better husband as I become a better man. You become a better wife as you become a better woman. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
That said, we have to remember that there are different kinds of love. And, sweetheart, you've been with me enough when I've taught on the fruit of the Spirit. You know that one of my chief concerns is that we allow the devil to sort of fill the good words with his meaning, right? So the devil, you'll hear secularists all over the place talk about how we need love and how we need to hate, and haters are so bad, and yada, yada, yada. But their version of what love is not the biblical version. Now, the Bible, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say their love is, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, it's self-love. Yeah, that's right.
It is, your love is based on how you fill my love tank.
Right, exactly. And a marital relationship then becomes sort of divvying up the booty. You know, am I getting enough
points?
And are you getting enough? And how do we make sure? And if it gets out of balance and someone gets unhappy, and that's not the Bible's view at all. It's another simple way of putting it is that, biblically speaking, marriage isn't 50-50. Right. It's 100-100.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So that said, that affirmation and recognition of the sort of sameness or overlap between marital love and love in general, all in contrast to the world's view of love. The Bible gives us some distinctions of love, all of which are positive loves, but each has its own place, right? We start with agape love, which is, again, has a place in marriage. Unconditional love has a place in marriage as in our other relationships. But let's be careful. That's one of those places where you sort of redefine what unconditional love means to that line from Love Story. Love means never having to say you're sorry. Now, what we mean by unconditional love is this, that my love for you is not dependent upon what you do, what you say, how you behave, right? This is where it comes back to that 100-100.
Right.
So that, for instance, when we look at Ephesians 5, where wives are called to submit to their husbands, husbands are called to love their wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her, neither one of us is supposed to say, well, when you start doing your job, I'll start doing my job. That's conditional, right? If you do this, I will do that. No, I'm supposed to love you as Christ loves the church, even if you don't honor me as the church is supposed to honor Christ, and vice versa, right? It's not I'm going to wait. So that's a critical part of what agape is, and it's so important, I think, sweetheart, for marriage, because marriage is the only relationship in all of the Bible that is permanent. You know, that is, I have to be able to believe that even when I sin against you, you're not going to stop loving me, because two things I know. One, I'm going to sin against you. And two, I'm going to be with you forever.
Right.
And so I need you to be forgiving. And the same thing is true, again, or vice versa, right? You're going to sin against me, and I need to be ready and eager and willing to forgive you, to not have that love be conditional, because we're going to still be together. It's just really scary. I mean, that's really something, sweetheart.
It is, but let's stop right there for a minute. Let's park it on the bench there for a minute, because marriages, let's go back to the beginning of what you're saying.
Okay.
You know, when a husband and a wife are together and a wife doesn't feel heard and a wife doesn't feel loved, she will usually pull out the gun. Well, I'll tell you what, dude, when you do that, I'll give you respect, because you know what? I don't respect you. So even us saying that, it is the default of our sinful nature to be that.
Yeah.
And we've certainly had struggles, not that we've necessarily said those particular words, but that is in the heart of us as sinners.
Right.
It's in the heart of us as friends. It's in the heart of us as human beings and individuals, because we don't want to respect someone who lost our respect.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like, well, once my respect is lost, you'll never regain it. In a marriage, you're going to lose my respect, I'm going to lose your respect, and we are constantly rebuilding. But part of that rebuilding is, you know, God again taking that sandpaper, sanding it down, and making us become more like Him, less like ourselves, and beautiful in our marriage. And knowing that, gosh, it was so great to finally get over that hurdle, but recognizing in and of ourselves, God, thank you. Thank you for showing me how horrible I am.
Yeah.
How many people say that? I mean, do you say that, audience? Do you say, Lord, show me how horrible I am, how wretched I am as a wife or a husband? There's a lot of broken marriages, and they default in that place.
Absolutely. Which is why it's called the fruit of the Spirit, not the fruit of ourselves.
Right. And because the Spirit of God lives in
yes, we have
you,
hope.
You have His
power.
Abundance and power that's in your life. You're without excuse. And that's
Right.
what I want to say and get across to just the majority of especially Christian followers, because so often they are led astray by other ways of thinking and not just the Bible saying, this is what's supposed to be produced in you.
Right.
Conflict's going to come. Your love's going to be challenged. Your respect is going to be challenged. You know, I'm sure it's hard for you to love me when I might be angry over something, or I might have to confront with something, or that's hard.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have struggles with respecting you when I don't feel valued or loved. So in theory, we can say that all day long, but are we living it?
Right. But at least we need to, I mean, it is a step in the right direction to acknowledge what's right.
Oh, absolutely.
While acknowledging, hey, it's easier said than done, right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
But as you point out, we are indwelt by the Holy Spirit. We don't have an excuse. We don't say easier said than done, throw up our hands and give up.
Right. God's given us tools.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, sweetheart, I before we parked, I was starting to head down this particular road in my own mind, thinking about my relationship with you, and how, you know, my propensity. And I hate to use this kind of sort of psychological language, but I do think there's something to it. That being someone who's very conflict averse, I tend to be the flight when it's fight or flight. I tend to be the flight guy.
Okay.
And that can work out to a standoffishness emotionally. And what has happened in my life with you is you have sort of gotten past that, and you have tapped into, in me, this kind of love that is really scary. Because I mean, you've heard me say it, sweetheart, many, many times. I mean, with pleading in my voice, I need your approval. You know, even today, I forget what it was. You sent me a message at text message asking me if I could do something. I said, no, I can't do that. And you were like, oh, I'm so hurt. It's breaking my heart. And
playing it.
Yeah. And I mean,
violin.
And, for a split second, I was horrified.
And then I'm like, JK.
Yeah, just kidding. But it just reminded me of, I just hate the thought of hurting you or you not knowing how much you're loved and disappointing you in any way. And so I guess what I'm trying to say to the audience is this: low risk, low reward, high risk, high reward. And the solution to the risk is not to risk low. The solution to the risk is to forgive high, to rebuild high, to start again high, to risk my needing you, my needing your love, my needing your approval. I can do that because you know the gospel, and you know your own need for forgiveness, and you know my need for forgiveness. That's why I like that expression you use in describing us. You've said that we've now gotten past it, but for several years.
Are you hurt?
Because you used to call us old newlyweds, right? And the idea...
Well, we are old. That's,
we still got that going on.
Older.
But part of the key was, hey, God's put us through a lot in a quick time. And part of that is hardships from outside of us that draw us closer together. But part of it is hardships between us.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's been a beautiful journey, though, dear. And I want to say something right into what you were talking about, your fight or flight, or the way you might see yourself as not being a confrontive kind of person. And I mean, I don't think any of us love to have to confront.
Right.
But when you have confronted, people, or I'm always blown away because you are just pundit. You are right into the center and speak with authority right into that spot. And often I'm blown away thinking, why does he think he's not capable? Because, man, you come with the boom. And so I just will sit back and think, my gosh. I've heard you, dear. So let me just say how you see yourself versus how I see yourself.
Well, let me give you an illustration from my youth, I think, that maybe illustrates that.
Okay.
I actually remember showing you this spot when we were first married, and I was showing you where I grew up, and there's this, from time to time I would walk to Little League practice or to the candy store. It was about a 3-mile walk, and there was this long steep hill that I had to walk up, not both ways, but one way.
Yeah. With my violin.
And you remember I told you see that white fence right there? I said I was walking to practice, and this giant German Shepherd was just roar, 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 roar at me. And I was just fine until it jumped over the fence. It was running to me, and I'm running as quickly as I can until I realized, hey, I'm not going to outrun this guy. And I turned around, and I shrieked at this dog like a girl. Hitting the upper register. I think glass broke in the neighborhood. But I shrieked, and it stopped. Yeah. So I'm first inclination is run. Right. But when there's no place else to go, I turned around and I gave it what I had.
Right. And there's a difference between an avoider.
Yes.
Which that is probably more what most people, unless you're drama driven and you like to just roll people over like a steamroller, but avoiding knowing that you're going to have to say the hard things.
Yeah.
And then knowing it's going to percolate until
it's
steaming, and you have to do it.
Yeah.
And so, I love you, dear.
I love you, baby.
And I love what God's done in us and through us, and He continues to do. And when I wake up every morning and we pray and we see each other and we go to bed every night, it's like, that is my man.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel,
soulmate, baby.
And you are. And so it's fitting that the next time we come together, we'll talk about joy. I love you, sweetheart, and you are my joy.
And mine too.
You've been listening to the Jesus Changes Everything podcast, a production of Dunamis Fellowship, the teaching outreach of Dr. R.C. Sproul Jr. If you've enjoyed this podcast, we encourage you to subscribe, which you can do at all the usual outlets, to tell your friends, and to spread the word. To learn more about the work of Dunamis Fellowship, please visit rcsproulJR.com and join us next time on Jesus Changes Everything.